and to tell them that it works. You just have to stick with it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I started doing before I even forgave my parents. And I was so depressed and suicidal at some times that I just would have to stop in the middle of my job or whatever I was doing and go into the silent prayer. And it really does help. Like, I don't have those anymore.
Amazing. You haven't seen anything yet. Doubt every thought. Bring every thought into captivity. Just let them all pass. Don't judge them. You haven't seen anything. It gets better and better and better and easier, easier. So my gift to you, no charge, at rebuildingtheman.com/church. We have a counseling service, and I have to admit, thanks to God, it is the best counseling service on this side of heaven. I counsel with men and women, families, individuals around the world. Most people are unhappy, they're miserable, they have rough lives, they're depressed, suicidal, young and old, of all races. I understand, I know why, and I do understand it. Because exactly what's happening in me is happening with everybody outside of me, inside of them. And I've noticed that with those who really want to understand, they will become it just like that, out of one counseling session. If you need counseling, you can go to rebuildingtheman.com or call 800-411-2663. 800-411-BOND. Best counseling service on this side of heaven. Isn't he Mexican?
Colombian.
He calls himself American.
What is this?
Anchor Baby.
And in this corner, it's the American Anchor Baby.
Daddy's home. That's an offensive term. People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct? Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby. You know, he's an anchor baby in Canada.
Tell him we still rolling with Trump, too.
Anchor baby, the whole thing sounds horrific. You're just making it sound like immigrants are these horrific, greedy people.
Ustedes pueden aceptar mi negocio o aceptar las consecuencias. Plata o plomo.
So you would be considered white, in my opinion.
You the blackest one in this room,
I think so.
And what happened was his mama got pregnant on the other side of the border, and then a few hours before, just before it was time for him to pop out, she jumped across the border and let him fall on American soil. So he became the anchor baby. You don't call him the anchor baby for nothing. Amazing.
We like this anchor baby, right?
Hello, I'm the American Anchor Baby, and this is my show. Thank you for tuning in, folks, on this fine Wednesday. What a fine Wednesday it is to be back. What a pleasure. What a pleasure to be back, because I got a bit of a show for you. Got a little bit of a show for you. Okay, King Trump, dictator King Trump versus everybody. They want to bring back the illegals. They want to bring back the Maryland man, poor Kilmar Garcia. We're going to break that down. For those that are not on top of it, it's a mess. But we're going to break it down. And a couple of other things, you know. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Things we didn't get to. Maybe even a little bit of autism. RFK versus autism. Carmelo versus America. And a whole bunch of stuff, honestly. We're filtering the noise of this loud world. Seeing through the matrix. Seeing the code of the matrix. Beyond, through the hate and the lies, to see the truth. Okay, we'll attempt that here on today's show. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. I believe I am live at all places. Nip popped out and said, hi, what's up? M, how you doing? Nice to see you in the chat. But I'm live with you here, I think, everywhere. Let's do a little check. Let's do a little check-sees, because we are alive. We are live on rumble.com/AmericanAnchorBaby, punchy.tv/AnchorBaby, dlive.tv/Gorgonzola, and YouTube. So welcome, everybody. If you want to call in, 888-775-3773. The number to call in, get on hold, jump on the air there if you want to talk with the Anchor Baby. Something on your mind. Other than that, though, don't be rude. Come on in, take a seat, kick back. I got a show for you. Click the like button. Don't be rude. Have some manners. You're always waiting. Oh, I'm gonna be a big person waiting for. I'm gonna wait for something to like before I click. Okay, fine. But at least say hello. Jump in the chat. Leave a comment. Appreciate you being here. All right. So, what can I say? I think that's all the housekeeping. I want to jump into some of the things here. Welcome, everybody. I'm seeing you there in the chat. My supporters. Very nice. Beautiful. So what else? I feel like I was thinking there's something else. There's something else. How about we just jump in? And I got to say, thank you, Sion. Sion, thank you so much. Appreciate the very generous donation on Buy Me a Coffee. So a big shout out to Sion there. 07s. Very nice. Be civilized and okay? Have some decorum. Mr. Pink, that's okay. Okay, all right, folks. So I think we're just going to jump into this because I kind of broke it down for myself, this whole deal. I jumped into what is actually going on. So I thought I'd give you that information, right? It might be interesting to you, but it's kind of a mess. It's kind of the current news cycle. It's this fight between Trump and Democrats, essentially. And some people in the Supreme Court, but they're saying it's a constitutional crisis, they're calling it. Because he dared. He's going against the Supreme Court who ordered him. How dare he deport an illegal immigrant, one of these illegals, an illegal alien. How dare he deport this illegal alien? And go against the Supreme Court telling him not to do that. What does this guy think? He wants to follow the law, enforce the law. What is this insane dictator trying to go around the Supreme Court as if he's president or something? I don't know. So they're fighting about it. They're saying it's a constitutional thing, right? Because you're supposed to listen to the Supreme Court. It's not like you have ultimate power as the president. We have rules in this country. We have a constitution, and I laugh because it seems very rich all of a sudden to be real legalistic, to care so much about your democracy and your constitution all of a sudden. And so that's a bit of what's going on, because the controversy centers around this Kilmar Garcia, who is being reported to be born in El Salvador. So he has been sent back to his home country where he was born. And some of the details, I'll give you the timeline, the details to get the accurate reporting here, right? But essentially, the controversy is around that. He was deported, and they're saying it was a wrongful deportation. But before that, look, let me show you what what they're calling the scramble to travel to El Salvador. So what you got is basically all sorts of, and they're internally divided over this, but Democrats are choosing this moment to make a big stink, like an activist stink against Trump for the reasons I described, right? Constitutional, it's he's not following the rules, and you just can't be deporting people like that, like you're just big racist king of the world. Okay? You get the vibes. So, I'm pulling up the Axios article here. They're talking about the Democrats' scramble to travel to El Salvador. There's all sorts of things that are being brought up about issues, etc. But they're reporting themselves that our constituents, the people coming to these town halls yelling at us, they are asking us to focus on the El Salvador thing. They're asking, that's what some of these Democrats are saying. And so you see what is going on, right? So they are making a big stink, right? They want to go to El Salvador. Representative Robert Garcia, Democrat out of California, Maxwell Frost, another Democrat, Florida, Cory Booker, they're all planning a trip to El Salvador. They're saying we need to spring into action. You can't just put up statements. That doesn't mean anything. So we got to make statements over there in El Salvador. So more statements, but anyways, I'm just nitpicking. I think it's important to say what we're thinking and what our next steps are. We have to show action. We have to do similar kinds of things for the others who are victims of this dystopian attack on our constitutional rights. This president is dangerous, and we can't let go. So, that's what they're fighting about. They're trying to bring this guy back, and they're dressing it up, right? They're dressing it up as this constitutional crisis so that they may protect others from the terrible absolute power of the state without any checks on that power. This is what we're looking at. It is contentious. There's people arguing it, conservatives like, I don't know, I don't really like this Trump. I forget who it was, but I see it out there. But they're not even internally agreeing on this. Some in the more establishment wing of the party have bristled at that approach, arguing it makes the party look frenetic without securing any concrete wins. It's like they're dedicated. Thank you, little Nick. It's like, if you notice, they're dedicated, absolutely dedicated to just staying wrong. It really is a spiritual battle. Despite everything that's happened, the people voting, the up, the down, the Trump winning again, and like, no, we're going to be obstinate. We're not going to change. We're going to trans the children. We are going to bring back the illegals. We are going to open up the border, and we're going to do the right thing. That's the insanity, right? Another House Democrat is quoted here in this article. I just came from a round table with 2 Democrat activist groups, and all they wanted to talk about was El Salvador. The sentiment within the party about rallying behind deportees is not universal. So that's the report, but they're committed to evil. And the liberal bases, their voters, and their demands is fascinating to me. When you see some of these videos and these Democrats are out there and they come on there yelling and protesting, they're not kicking the protesters out. They're just talking with them like, yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Just shaking their heads like, yeah, you're right. Everything you say. The people are terrorists, It's just, this whole us versus them, the government. It's like, put it like this. There's probably all sorts of fine conversations regarding that relationship. But on a deeper level, we got to get past that. Like, that's just us. This is just us. Oh, Cory Booker and these Democrats, their own constituents are out there yelling, hey, we want you to be angrier. We want you to go up against Trump. You're not being angry enough. Folks, this is us at this point. You know what I mean by that? Like, this is just us. Let's stop doing this. Those are the experts and the leaders, and this is your fault. Blame can be placed where it is, right? Because there's people with certain responsibilities that you're voted in for a job, etc. But beyond that, come on. This is just us. They're yelling at him like, be angrier, go against Trump. That's the people. That's America. So, and America's angry. But they're committed to this evil. It's crazy. And he is an illegal, if I may, again, from Salvador. His right to be here, and we'll get into that, his right to be here, he has no more right. It's thanks to activism. It's thanks to activism, temporary protection orders, all surrounding this already huge scam known as asylum in America. But anyways, who is Kilmer Garcia? Who is he? A little bit of what exactly happened, the timeline here, and how it basically went down. And when you see the details, you'll see, okay, well, That's why there's the controversy. But Kilmar Garcia, 29-year-old Salvadoran national, been at the center of this controversy. He was reportedly had entered the U.S. in 2011 at the age of 16. They say it was because he was fleeing gang-related threats. But everybody's a refugee is fleeing, right? Fleeing threats, fleeing something. But he settled in Maryland, and they say he built a life with a U.S. citizen wife, Jennifer Vasquez. Jennifer, and that's how the news is reporting that, like, the other day. Jennifer Vasquez Sura. I don't see any Garcia. Miss Jennifer. They've misprinted your name in the news. That's terrible. That's Jennifer Garcia. Time magazine, if I may correct you, Time. That lady's woman, that married woman's name is Jennifer Garcia. But anyways, okay, so married, building a life, they say, and all that. And in 2019, an immigration judge denied his asylum request because this, that's how it works. You come in illegally, you get released they'll give you court dates, slap you on the back like you're gonna be a good boy, right? Okay, get on in there, be an American for some years till we deal with this. You're in there, you're requesting asylum, you're doing all the things you're supposed to, despite, starting off doing something you're not supposed to. That's how crazy our country is. But he's there applying for asylum. They deny his asylum request, but they granted him what they call a withholding of a removal status. Now, you've heard of these protective statuses, temporary protective status, etc. And my understanding basically is this, is judges, they call this one an immigration judge, but judges can basically hand this down. And it's a little bit of an interesting relationship, right, with the law, the judicial side of the whole system, and the executive, right? The judicial people aren't supposed to be the ones making the law or enforcing it. They're the ones supposed to be like interpreting cases and that kind of stuff. That's my understanding. And so, isn't this a little bit of that? Constitutional crisis, overreach. You're like, I'm a judge, and this person is supposed to be deported. But you know what I think? I think you. And maybe imagine I'm a woman judge or a Garcia, Some people, I know racism does not exist. But some people are fallen and they tribe up, and truth doesn't matter to them. Only that last name. Because that's what I'm hearing, right? One of these judges, not Garcia, sorry. Yeah, one of these people trying to fly to El Salvador is like a Garcia. It's like, I wonder if he only sees Garcia. It's like, wow, that's the one of me. That's a Garcia. I got to help him. So imagine for a moment an activist judge saying, well, this person's supposed to be deported. That's the law. The law is trying to deport him. But you know what I think? You should be protected. So I'm going to go above the law and give you this order that says, yeah, he was supposed to be gone, but I'm saying he's not supposed to be gone for XYZ reason. Something sounds wrong about that, don't? Doesn't that sound messed up? But I'm not a lawyer. Anyways, Kilmar, his asylum, all that, denied, given the protection order. And where were we? Let's get that timeline. 2019, denied protective status because it would be too dangerous to return to El Salvador, and this status allowed him to live and work in the United States. It's funny, they report this, it allowed him to live and work legally in the United States. Yeah. In the very most basic definition of that word. A judge made a legal whatever, but it's activism. That's how those Haitians and all those people get to stay here, because internally in America, the system's divided. You either have someone who just wants to follow the law and generally is pro-America, or you have a total America hater. It's a colonist. They're colonizers. We got to, undo the past, open up the borders. And if it's not that radical, it's some level of that. So that's what that's the basis of this legality of this order. It's honestly flimsy when you ask most reasonable people if you break it down. But anyways, 2019, Garcia was arrested in Maryland during a police operation, and alleging he was affiliated with MS-13, citing his attire, tattoos, and associations. However, no concrete evidence was presented, and he was never charged with any crime in the U.S. Tattoos, I'm making a side point here. I wasn't there, the cop, or in this process, but tattoos. It's like, there's no concrete evidence presented. Tattoos, but I don't know about that stuff. He was never charged with any crime in the U.S. or El Salvador, according to Wikipedia. And he was later in March 2025, so years later, he gets a target, this police operation, but never charged. But that's the information ICE has. That's the information America has on Garcia. Trump comes in 2025, March 12th. ICE agents arrested Garcia, informing him that his immigration status had changed, and he was deported to El Salvador, despite a court order protecting him from removal due to safety, that order that I told you about. And upon arrival, he was detained at El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center, CICON. You got to imagine what that's like. Just waking up, you're like, this is it now. Especially if that really wasn't what was supposed to happen. Because the story goes, if I may remind you, soon after this March 12th deportation, all this, this mess came out. They were saying, he was not supposed to be deported. And it was amidst this, the Trump administration said that there was an administrative error in deporting Garcia. It's not clear the nature of this administrative error, but that was the response at the time, right? And this ends up going to a number of courts. So 2019, accused of affiliation with gangs, no charges. 2025, deportation. And it's this same month his wife files a lawsuit. Okay? The DOJ, it was the DOJ in response to this lawsuit where they said it was an administrative error. But that there was just no way of bringing it back. Like he's in El Salvador's custody. And all that. Okay? So it was right after this, and I'm going to get to calls 888-775-3773. It was right after this that this Judge Paula Zinis, like Xochitl maybe, Paula, like that Mexican name. Judge Paula Zinis ordered the Trump administration to return Garcia to the U.S. by midnight, if you remember that. But he was like already on a plane. It was already too late. This U.S. District Judge order went to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which declined to block this order. It then went further up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And now you probably remember this. The Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration must facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and ensure his case proceeds as if the wrongful deportation had not occurred. And that's essentially the problem here, right? Because they're saying, you're going against the Supreme Court, which, by the way, this was only possible. This stupid, all the reason, everybody reasonable, only like the women on the Supreme Court went against this. The liberal women plus the conservative woman, Amy Coney Barrett, the backstabber, the so-called conservative that was added to the Supreme Court. She went against this. It was like, no. And it's like, about that, it's like, put it like this. They're calling it this constitutional crisis. And it's like, for some reason, this is the moment for the activists and the human rights people. Not this mess of the southern border. Like, just even that by itself. The absolute mess of the southern border. Nothing like that, right? And here's really the thing about it. Really, the whole thing about this is that no one cares about Kilmar. Nobody cares about Kilmar Garcia. So I don't care about this story. Because what about us? What about America? What about, at what point are Americans allowed to fix things and do things for America? At what point? Look, we could even totally have a reasonable discussion about, okay, well, you know what? In the grand scheme of things, maybe not Kilmar Garcia. I personally think that's fine. He's an illegal. He wasn't supposed to be here. Whether it was clerical errors and temporary status protections, and the Trump administration admitted it was an administration error, all that I don't care. Illegal. Shouldn't be here. Even if none of that happened. But that being said, for the world, for the public discourse, all the people who voted Trump, all the reasonable people, we would have a discussion like, okay, you know what, that guy, bring him back, let's do it right. But the people saying this don't care. They don't care about Kilmar Garcia, and they don't want to have that reasonable discussion. The moment the administration caves in, the moment the administration says, we're wrong, bring him back, it's an onslaught. It's over. Because you'll be caving into people who are bringing up this conversation not in good faith, not to, close up the southern border, but let's do it the right way, Trump, calm down. Not at all. Not even a little bit. Nobody cares about Kilmar. It has nothing to do with Kilmar. Nobody cares about him. This is purely political. So that's why he shouldn't cave on this. Not even a little bit. Bukele out there in El Salvador saying, what about I heard him saying something about human rights. Oh, everyone's talking about human rights. What about the human rights of the public who wants to have a safe community? What about the human rights of the people who want to go outside, right? The human rights of people who don't want to be killed, who don't want to live around terrorists and gang members. But anyways, all of a sudden we got the human rights people, right? So Kilmar, I say, whatever, illegal, and nobody cares about him. It's just a big farce. Now you got the wife out here, standing for Kilmar. Let's watch a bit of this. That's his wife.
After his disappearance. And I stand before you filled with spirit that refuses to bring down. I will not stop fighting until I see my husband alive. Kilmar, if you can hear me, stay strong. God hasn't forgotten about you. Our children are asking, when would you come home? And I pray for the day I tell them the time and date that you'll return.
But he is home, right?
As we continue through Holy Week, my heart aches for my husband, who should have been here leading our Easter prayers. Instead, I find myself pleading.
What was it about this clip that I wanted to play? I'm not remembering.
With the Trump administration and the Bukele administration to stop playing political games with the life of Kilmar. Our family is torn apart during this scary time, and our children miss their dad so much. Despite the challenges we continue to face with the U.S. and the Salvadorian government, I hope that the strength of faith and the resilience within us will keep us standing after all the punches we continue to receive.
I don't remember why I wanted to play this.
God has given us. We will continue standing strong.
Like, go see your daddy, right? Well, he's in jail, but I heard Joe P saying that. Oh, my kids miss their dad so much. Then go see your daddy at home.
And we will never give up on you, Kilmer.
We will never give up on you. Now, I forget exactly what. My family can't be robbed from another day without seeing Kilmer. This administration has already taken so much from my children. Well, I don't know. It's just the risk you run living a life like that, right? Even if it wasn't, he's not a gang member, right? Illegal and all that. It's not a right. It's the risk you run. It's just the reality of the situation. Every illegal knows that. Oh, I might get deported. I'm illegal here. I could be doing this or that, and it could go wrong. So they know this. But anyways, no one cares about Kilmer. You know. Maybe this wife does. I don't know. But I'm telling you, nobody does. The backward hat screams gang member. Get Carver a job at the Department of Homeland Security. Quickly. Quick. So again, I guess we can move on from this. But I was talking about revolution yesterday a bit. Revolution. That Chinese guy telling America, you don't need tariffs, you need a revolution. When you see that that all these Democrats are joining together to put this what are they calling it? One of those, it's not a caucus, but they're putting together a little group so that they can port money and buy tickets to go to El Salvador, make this whole thing, right? Make this whole controversy go. And you realize, and all these people, they're calling it a constitutional crisis. The Supreme Court, it goes against the president who just wants to follow the law, deport illegals. And the Supreme Court goes against him. The women get together. The conservative woman joins them. They go against this brute, this man who just wants to deport people. What, you're supposed to follow the law. You're not a dictator. And then they turn around, and all the news and the Supreme Court and everybody, they all turn around and say, this guy, look at this guy trying to be a dictator, a constitutional crisis. When you see that, you need, in a sense, you need a revolution from that. No, there's no convincing. There's no debating. They've been doing what they're saying Trump is doing for years, for decades. So in a sense, you need a revolution from that. But the funny thing about that word and all that is that at the stage we're at now, with how crazy people are, folks, the so-called experts, the people with experience and years, the people who've been in government for a year, they've gone nuts. You see how they act? You see how they are? The only things that explain how they act is they've turned on America and it's all about them and their tribe, their family. They're truly angry and nuts. So either they're evil or stupid, right? I'm describing how insane things are, right? Because these people have the titles. It's I'm supposed to look like the crazy person, right? Because I'm criticizing these people, but they have the titles. But I'm trying to tell you, folks, they've gone nuts. And in amidst all this, doing the right thing is, in a crazy world, is the revolution, right? Doing the right thing, doing the simple thing, doing the right thing and the simple thing is the revolution. See all the people who hear that word and want to plunge, want to like go to war and fight for this revolution in their minds, don't realize that is the spirit destroying America, so to speak. That spirit wants that revolution. You don't get that. You think you know what that revolution is supposed to look like. But in this world, doing just the simple right thing is the revolution. So a little bit on Trump, I guess, and his actions in a sense. So anyways, you know, they're saying they're finding probable cause to hold the Trump administration in contempt for violating orders And these judges, activists, they're all making these claims. So we'll see where that goes, right? But yet again, right? They tried impeaching him, they tried doing this and that. And now they're doing this whole thing on they're finding probable cause to hold Trump administration in contempt. And that's, I guess, what they're going to try for. We'll see how far that goes. It's funny, right? He's like this dictator who's going against all constitutional rights and he's above it all. He's like this king. It's so scary. Let's hold him for contempt under the law. This dictator, this dictator who laughs at the Constitution and wants to jail his enemies and all these things they say about him. You want to jail him? You right? Like you judge in this dictator's regime. You want to go against the dictator? You want to be like, I'm going to put you in jail. Either you're stupid or you don't really believe that he's this crazy dictator who's going to jail his enemies like Stalin or something. So anyways, it's silly. It's silliness. 888-775-3773. About to get to calls right now. I just want to show you Stephen Miller, though. You know Stephen Miller a bit. He was in the first Trump administration. Right now he is, I believe he is a security advisor for United States Homeland Security Advisor. But I hear he's like a top guy, you know, been with Trump in the first administration and is very anti-immigration. Like, some are saying he's a Jewish Bill Butcher. I mean, a Jewish Bill the Butcher. Wait, let me get that straight. Where's the meme? Some are saying, because he's Jewish, right? Stephen Miller's Jewish. Some are saying that this dude is a Jewish Bill the Butcher. And I don't even know who Bill the Butcher is. Who's Bill the Butcher? Bill the Butcher, leader of the Washington Street Gang. Huh. Oh, I think I saw him in that movie, Gangs in New York. Look at that. I guess I could. Oh, yeah, I kind of know. So, Bill the Butcher, they're saying this Stephen Miller, look at him. Never seen a man hate immigrants this much. This dude is a Jewish Bill the Butcher. He's staring at that Asian woman, wondering if he could deport her. Awesome picture. Bill the Butcher just rolled over in his grave. Stephen Miller, he's staring at that Asian woman. He's like, how can I get rid of her? Look at her. Should you be in this country? Show me your passport. It's the purest hatred I've ever seen, some are saying. Now, I don't know if these people are just projecting, right? How do they know Stephen Miller's heart? Maybe he's just doing the right thing. But that's what they're saying. They're saying Miller cut off a childhood friend for being Mexican. And I don't know if that's just some liberal trying to make him look terribly bad. But they're saying that he told classmates to speak English, showed up to school meetings to attack their fight against racism, and then immediately left. He also reportedly enjoys seeing pictures of families separated at the southern border. And they post some of these accounts alleging these things about Stephen Miller. Though the two initially bonded over Star Trek, Miller abruptly ditched. Oh, so what happened is, I believe one of these old friends of Stephen Miller, did some interview describing this from years ago, right? And the Miller abruptly ditched Islas as a friend the summer after middle school, citing his Latino heritage as justification. The conversation was remarkably calm, Islas told Guerrero. He expressed hatred for me in a calm, cool, matter-of-fact way. Listen, Jason, you're Mexican. I'm not. And that's just it. I'm just like doing a little skit, wondering what Stephen Miller may have said to his Mexican friend. Now, there's no reason not to be friends. I wonder if they're just adding to it, like if Stephen Miller really said that. There's no reason not to be a friend, right? You should be a friend of the whole world. But, hey, Stephen Miller, I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're in there. With your style and your spirit. A journalist asked Stephen Miller once, and then I'll get to calls right after this, how many must you deport to make America great again? Will you deport both the old and the young, the criminal and the worker? Miller replied, can you count the hairs on my head? The journalist looked closely, but admitted, although he could see quote-unquote hairs, not a single hair could he identify, nor count the aggregate. Miller spoke, "Not one man knows the count, but each man knows the level, a gleaming dome, bereft of sign." At this, the onlookers were in line. Now, I guess that's supposed to mean, like, no immigrants, but that went over my head. But amazing. Shout out Stephen Miller. I just thought that was funny. I just thought it was silly, considering the constitutional crisis before us. But enough of that. Let me get to Mark out of Los Angeles. Appreciate your call, sir. You're on the air.
Yeah, Hank. I'm sorry.
Nick the Anchor Baby.
I just called to say that I wanted to talk about the Metcalf case in Texas.
Frisco.
Well, Frisco, Texas, yeah. I wanted to say, I tried to say this earlier on the Hake Show, but I didn't get a chance to. Since the Civil Rights Bill passed in 1964, before 1964, all of our cities were white-dominated and safer than they are today. I mean, there were always crime in New York, Chicago, L.A., even in the 1950s before the Civil Rights Bill. But after it passed, I say about 3 years after it passed, a lot of major cities started getting black-dominated populations, and the black political machine took over. And two examples would be Gary, Indiana, and Cleveland, Ohio. They both elected black mayors in 1967. You know, that's like almost 60 years ago. And look at the conditions of those cities now. Those cities are unsafe. And almost every major city is dominated by the black political machine. And in all those cities, the crime is out of hand. The black mothers are teaching their kids to hate whitey. And that's what I tried to tell Hake. See, the problem with Hake is that he's filled with white guilt. And that's
Well, take that up with Hake, because I'm not familiar with any conversations you had with him. So
well, no, but he hung up on me, or I would have.
No, okay. But I just want to say, Mark, that I didn't hear that conversation earlier, and so I'm not saying anything went wrong. I just don't know, but I'm advising you in case something did come up on that conversation, don't bring it up here, because I'm about to. Oh, hang on, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know what I'll do. So no point in bringing that up. Take it up with James. You're bringing up Metcalf, though. It's a fascinating, a fine topic, and you're telling me about how these cities are all been taken over by the black political machine. Is that true? Now, I get that impression, but like actually, bird's eye view here, every city, like pretty much every major city in America?
Well, Cleveland, I could name them.
Because I heard you name Cleveland, I heard you name Gary, and I feel like I've heard these names, Chicago, but I feel like I've heard the same cities over the years.
Philadelphia,
not trying
Detroit, Milwaukee,
right?
Atlanta, Los Angeles. Do I need to go on?
No, you don't. No, point is clear. I'm not trying to discount it. I'm trying to get a true view of it for myself, because it's only things I've heard and have an impression of. But when you put it out like that, so you're saying, yeah, L.A., I think I'd agree with you on that. I do hear some of the same cities, but I mean, that sounds like a pretty varied collection of cities you mentioned.
Well, sure, but you can look it up. I mean,
no, I'm not necessarily trying to even fight that, but.
Sure, but in the case of Los Angeles, it's not a black-dominated city, Hispanic, and a lot of illegals. And they did have a black mayor, Tom Bradley, at one time. And I think a lot of black people have moved out of L.A. And that's why the black political machine, although the city council and the present mayor are far-left radicals, they're not black nationalists or black anti-white racists like Bradley was. So LA is a little bit different than the other cities in the Midwest that I named. But it's still dangerous here. It's still, there's still left-wingers. Well, Karen Bass is black, and you could see what a miserable job she did with the fires in the Palisades. So these people are not competent. They weren't meant to rule, and America's suffering for it. Right now, our major cities are the danger zones, the black-dominated major cities. What saves the white man is that we have the suburbs and out in the country where most of your conservatives are and where it's a lot safer.
So segregation exists in America?
Well, not lawfully,
Right.
but it does. See, there's two kinds of segregation. There's what they call de facto and de jure.
Right.
De facto is gone, unfortunately. That's where it's established by law to segregate the races. De jure segregation is when it's done by custom, like in the northern cities, like where I grew up. Everything was segregated, but not by law, but by custom. But
That's
after the
interesting to hear.
Civil Rights Bill, pardon?
Please go on. After the Civil Rights
I'd
Bill?
say, yeah, after that passed, everything changed for the worst. And the reason, of course, I lived through the 60s, so I could tell you, life was great in 1960. But by 1970, the hippies came in, the dope came in, the black radicalism came in. Just look at the numbers. Look at the number of black families that were intact before 1960, and look at that number today. Okay, the Civil Rights Bill was no good for anybody, and we're suffering the consequences of that bill today. White guilt is a side note to the Civil Rights Bill. The white man got so guilt-ridden that things like this guy stabbing Metcalf out in Texas, only more of that's going to happen. And I hate to say that, but when the guy could raise, $1 million or whatever it was, I don't remember, all that money from black haters, white hating Negroes across the country, that's only going to stimulate more of this. They figure, well, we could kill a white man and get rich and play the guilt card and play the race card. And we'll get some ACLU lawyers and other white hating groups to defend him. And maybe he's going to walk. You know, I don't want him to walk. But what I'm getting at is the Civil Rights Bill brought this on us. And again, one of the problems with it is that it brought white guilt, and so many people I know suffer from that illness, and that's what's destroying us as a race. And that's on that issue. I guess that's all I have to say in regards. And
I'll put it like this:
quick.
Are you switching topics? I want to just ask about this because
sure, absolutely.
You mentioned so America was already crud by the 70s, but I had an amazing childhood. But that's a side point. I'm making a bit of a joke. I want to ask about what you were saying though. This you're bringing up everything you said is interesting, and it's something that is controversial right now, and the reason it's interesting to me is because it seems like the way the system treats Carmelo Anthony, they're basically saying it's open season on whites, and it's just worse and worse and worse. It's insane. It's absolutely hateful. It's insane. But hearing you out, don't worry about that. Mm-hmm. Hearing you out, I do, something does come to mind on this topic. That's not just, allow me to paint this picture, because
sure.
Even now, you were just telling me how even in today's 2025, where America, where, you know, racism is illegal and et cetera and all that, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but you still have segregation and separation. And I'm really not trying to discount the evil hatred coming from black people, but just put that aside for a second here. And I wonder for a moment, at these heights, why don't white people just do their own thing? You know, because you're telling me, man, these black cities and all this stuff and the white guilt is destroying us, right?
Right. But
why? Let's say, how about instead of fighting and arguing, it's like you're a fault, and how about drop all that and just separate?
Well, how can you do that when it's illegal? You cannot legally segregate.
And you bring up you bring up the like actual details of this topic that in some cases may need to be confronted, but keeping it general, like you just said, people do still separate. Like you're still allowed to. Like there's no one, even though there's a government, even though there's a law, you're still an individual man, right? And so why not internally and eventually outwardly do what you see is right, as opposed to making a crusade, right? It's like, you know what? I'm just going to do what I see is right.
Okay, here's the situation. I'll put it out this way. In the 60s in my town where I grew up in the Midwest, we had Negroes. They were about maybe 20% of the population, and everything was segregated by custom, not by law. And today, that same hometown is almost 50% Negro, unsafe, drug infested, and nobody wants to live there. But so what happens is a lot of the white people moved into the suburbs. They moved out into the country to escape these savages. But unfortunately, they moved out there too. After they decimated the cities, they follow us out to the suburbs. I'd love to go somewhere where it's an all-white state or all-white city, but those are getting harder and harder to find, not only because of the Negroes, but because of this open border where they're flooding the country with the third world. Even though Trump is attempting to get rid of these people, you know, he's got communist judges that are trying to fight him. And that's the other thing I wanted to say. If I were Trump, I would defy, I think I mentioned this the other day. I would just defy the judge. What can they do? He's not going to be able to bring that monster back from Salvador.
Hey, he's a dad.
I don't care if he's a dad. So what? You know, that's just a farce. That's just a front. Oh, yeah, let's cry for him because he's a dad. Let's get them all out of here. Take all of his family, send them all to El Salvador, and they could have fun together down there in jail. But I would just defy these judges, because if we keep holding up Trump's attempts to deport these criminals, by the time the court hearings are all through, Trump's term will be over, and we will not have been able to get rid of these demons. I would just deport, and I would defy the judge
to
do something about it.
Well, you know what?
And I'm telling you, a lot of these left-wingers, these Antifa types, are using Trump's defiance of these judges as an excuse to have war or revolution. I heard one Antifa communist say that, well, if Trump's going to defy the court order, we have a right to burn this country down. That's their attitude, and I say bring it on. Bring it on. We got to get rid of these people. We voted Trump in to do this, and no court. No, there is no such thing as a national injunction. That's a made-up term by a bunch of leftists to stop the Trump agenda because they couldn't beat him at the polls, so they're trying to beat him in the courts. And I would ignore these courts, and that includes the Supreme Court. We got some bad ones on there, too. And but they did approve of him using the 1798 Enemies Act, but with a caveat. We have to give them hearings. There's millions of these demons in our country, and we're going to give them hearings? No, did they get any hearings when Biden brought them in? No, they didn't get any hearings. So we have to sit around and give them hearings? Hell, heck no. They'd be on the next plane out. Pardon?
No, I hear you, Mark. So okay, I got you. No, you answered me. Yeah, I think reasonably, and it really did. It really highlights. It really did highlight how there is. How do I put this? Because I'm saying, like, basically just segregate yourself. And it's like, I knew when I was saying that there's like a naivety. And so I understand what you're describing, that you don't really get to even do that. But what do you think about this? Here's where I really was coming at it from. Because, yeah, I get the practicality of it. I'm being a little maybe naive or obtuse. But what do you think about this spiritual approach? Because it's like, because you come in with the facts and you got the history here, right? But here's where I'm coming from. Put it like this: when you see two people, and it doesn't have to do race, just take like two people or two groups, and or let's say, have you ever fought with like a girlfriend or a wife or something, and you're fighting and it's like back and forth and you're not understanding each other? If you were a third party observer, wouldn't you see them as silly, and wouldn't you see them and wouldn't you think to yourself, you know what? If I was in that situation, I would just turn around and walk away. I wouldn't stay in this back and forth fighting. And I see it maybe a little bit of that happening spiritually with this racial thing. Could you imagine for a moment, even if the practical thing I was saying doesn't make sense, just kind of, I don't know if that makes sense to you, spiritually, doing this whole thing, don't you feel a little silly? And maybe not you particularly, but anyone out there with this crusade, it's like, yeah, black people hate you. Time to like maybe move on. Like, I don't know, not go on a crusade about that.
Scott Adams. Okay, that would be a person I would point to who warned us about this Black Plague. And he actually did, he's a wealthy man, he actually did move away from them. He didn't say where he lives, but he said, if you got the money, just get away before it's too late. Just find somewhere where they're not at and live up there if you can afford it. Because tell me this, where is a white man supposed to go to raise his family without the schools indoctrinating his kids, the Negroes trying to go after his daughter? Where can they live safely in this country today? I mean, if you were raising a young family, I wouldn't raise them in L.A. There is no way in L.A. that they would be. I'd go out to the middle of Idaho or something, but then there's disadvantages to that too. I mean, you need doctors, you need stores, you need things that if you live in the middle of nowhere, it's a little dangerous. So you're stuck. It's, the white race right now that has got a tiger by the tail, the Negro. We can't hold on and we can't let go. And it will probably be the destruction of our country. They're only 13% now. But with the immigration and the babies being born, it doesn't bode well for our future. And I don't see any way that this is going to be solved because it's a one-way street. Worship them, give them everything they want. They offer us nothing but a guilt trip.
Who would you ultimately blame for that?
The liberals, the race mixer and liberals, the courts, because like I said, before the 64 Civil Rights Act, we had segregation. Before the 54 Brown versus Board ruling, which was unconstitutional because it federalized the schools, we had peace in our schools. They weren't indoctrination centers. They were run locally.
How do you know that there was peace there? I mean, I know what you're saying. I'm not trying to derail that. Like, yeah, it was. I think you could probably prove that. It's like, yeah, there was less violence and all that.
Well, there
but
were
I guess
no race
I'm trying to. I'm trying to add the God in there. You know what I'm saying? It's like peace. What do you know about peace?
But,
you tell me those schools
sure,
were peaceful. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they didn't have racial violence, which shouldn't be there.
Right in the 50s,
a racial jungle, like they called it.
Yeah, there were no race riots in the 50s. Not that I know of. Not of any big named riots that I've ever heard of in the 1950s. It all started in the 60s. It started with the civil rights stuff. If we had listened to our Southern brothers, white Southern brothers, who had contact with these people for 100 years or 200 years, and we would have heeded their warning to keep segregation, we wouldn't be in this mess. And it's the same with South Africa.
But what about now?
Well, it's too late now.
No. You're saying if we didn't do this, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be doing this. But I'm hearing shoulda, coulda, woulda, and it's like there's a lot that, for example, all the people you're talking about that they could do right now that they won't do, which is what? For example, forgive and overcome fear so that they're not afraid to just say the truth. Hey, black people, I'm not your problem. It's not right. To have the and it goes both ways, whatever. But there's things. What I'm trying to get at is you're saying, oh, if we only did this, if we only segregated, there's things that all Americans could be doing right now to make things better, but they won't do it.
Well, how do we make things better? Integration will fail. Okay, integration will not work. It'll just destroy the white race, and civilization itself will collapse. And
I hear you, Mark. You made your point there, sir. Please go ahead. Find a point here before we move the wheels.
Final point is white America has a choice to make. And we're either going to separate from these people any way we can, legal or not, or we're going to integrate with them and it'll destroy us. That's the choice. America, make your choice. There's one good book you should read. It's called, Integration. Mongolarization or separation. Take your choice. Written by Senator Theodore G. Bilbo.
Oh, sorry. I went unconscious there. Mark, you know better than to just be promoting books on my show. Don't do that again. Call me some other time.
But you won't find it anyway. It's not in any bookstore.
All right. Take care, Mark. Call me again, 888-775-3773. I went unconscious there. But look, how can you, Mark brings up the conversation, and let's do Carmelo real quick and jump right back to calls. For all the things you may disagree and agree, nitpick here and there, can you really sit there? Can you really honestly, let's say you had all white people in a room somehow, and you were able to look at all white people in the eyes. Can you honestly tell them, you just have to integrate with black people. You just have to. It's just the right thing. I wouldn't ask anybody to integrate so-called with anybody that's hateful. Like for me, it's not what, I don't know. He was bringing up some book and I don't know what that book says, like whatever reason, whatever that word means, mongrelization or whatever. But for me, I wouldn't want to integrate with hateful people. Like they're outwardly hateful. Like they're outwardly hateful and justified in it. And they say they think they're fine with it. They think it's fine because they are justified in this anger. How can you ask anybody, how can you look them in the eyes and tell them you have to accept that and live with them? No. Hateful people, like that's a hateful, angry person, whoever it is, whatever color. That's where I'm coming at it from. That's where I'm coming at it from. So yeah, for whatever you may agree or disagree with Mark, how can you look at white people in the eyes and say, you just have to, because it's the right thing? Let's do calls here. Give me a few minutes while we run through while we run through Carmelo real quick, since Mark brought it up. I've been meaning to kind of break this down briefly, because you guys know, you guys honestly all know that this individual, Carmelo Anthony, 17, stabbed this individual in the heart over there at this track meeting, okay? And you by now know of this, okay? Obviously. April 2nd, 2025, during the UIL District Championship track meet, Carmelo Anthony, 17-year-old student from Centennial High School, and Austin Metcalf, 17-year-old student from Memorial, were in an altercation. Witnesses reported that Metcalf asked Anthony to move from under a tent designated for Memorial's track team. Anthony allegedly responded by reaching into his bag, saying, "Touch me, see what happens." When Metcalf attempted to move Anthony allegedly stabbed him in the chest and fled the scene. That's the story. He was found by authorities, and Anthony was formally charged with first-degree murder, April 3rd. With jail with bond set at $1 million. CBS. April 10th. A little bit of the timeline for you. A lot of emotion surrounding this, so let's pin it down. Collin County District Attorney Greg Williams announced that due to Supreme Court rulings prohibiting the death penalty or life without parole for crimes committed by minors, Anthony would not face the death penalty if convicted. And I think maybe that you probably understand a law like that, sort of like there's probably some people who put it like this. I think it says at this point probably a silly law because you declaw the death penalty, and the death penalty, the point of it is this ultimate punishment for people going above and beyond anything normal. And guess what? A so-called minor, 17 years old. But a so-called, let's say a child, let's just hypothetical situation, 12-year-old stabs and kills somebody. And you say, well, not a 12-year-old, you can't give him the death penalty. That's exactly who the death penalty would be for those going above and beyond anything normal, anything just like in the scope of normalcy of like what's allowed and just what's too far. Children killers kind of falls under that category, you understand? Now, if you ask me, I'd be the type, I don't know, I might show some put it like this, I'm okay with a culture that will look at a minor, a child killer, and maybe say, you know what went wrong here before we just, but I'm also not so, emotional about it. Like, no, you can't do it with the children. Like, just a little commentary on this death penalty law, I guess. But April 14th, bond reduction hearing was held by this judge, Angela Tucker. You may have seen her, this black lady judge. And she reduced Anthony's bond from $1 million to $250,000, citing factors such as his age, lack of criminal history, and ties to the community, which is just interesting. You know, maybe lack of criminal history, age, okay, that's normal. Ties to the community. So he's got people love him. He's got ties to the. What is that? What is that? I've never seen that personally, but that's kind of what's adding to this controversy right now. Is this reduction in bond? And here's the thing with bond, you know, you don't even have to pay $250,000. It's usually just 10% of that. So 25,000, you stab someone in the heart, right? Big high profile case. But you get images like this, and it's causing a lot of tension, a lot of anger. And not just like black people, this is like everybody. White people, like people on the other side of this. They're seeing this video where he's released, able to go home with his family. After this posting this bond and whatever. And they're looking at this like this is wrong. That's how people are feeling about it. And whether it is or not, we'll get into the details here. The truth is that's how people are feeling. And so the reporters choosing this moment, this little moment, and trying to ask him something as he walks.
Carmelo, why were you armed at school?
Why were you armed at school, Carmelo? Fine question.
Explain your self-defense. How is this self-defense?
Fine question. Nobody was able to get anything out of Carmelo here as he's whisked away, and now he's on house arrest, okay? And again, we'll get right to calls after this. I'm almost done. But the controversy, now the people are really, it's really adding to the tension. You heard about the donations, for example. Reportedly, they raised $500,000 in what they're calling a legal defense fund. But just take a gander at some of the recent posts on social media that Carmelo Anthony's family has been posting. You know, they're, for example, all over this, you see this post here. It reads, now this is one of Carmelo's people posting that says, manifesting God's promise. They post a picture of this mansion. This mansion, you got to see this mansion. It's beautiful. McMansion, maybe? I don't know. It's looking like it has like some pretty interesting wall work, but they do cheap facades of this nowadays, so it could be McMansion. It could be, I don't know. I gotta study more, but this is listed as a $863,000 home in Frisco, Texas. A gated community, they say. And here's the post. Manifesting God's promises all 2023. Thanks to my husband, my best friend of 17 years. I love you, baby. This is why they really mad. Look at my new ride. Both mom and dad in this house, unlike the other family. And I have to assume, what's the other family? Because they're saying both mom and dad in this house. Apparently the other family, if you might know a bit of this. But that father who was going around doing like kind of race simping, let's be real. You know, I don't want this to be about race. Like, bro, why do you have to go and do the media rounds and tell them I'm not racist. Don't make this racism. They stabbed your son in the heart at a track meet. But they were separated. I'm hearing that father you saw in those videos, they made the mother of those twins and that father may not have been together or whatever. I don't know the deal, but I'm pretty sure that's what they're saying here. Both mom and dad in this house, unlike the other family. Hashtag free Carmelo, showing off their new, is that a Cadillac? Just, stop with the fake narrative. No absent father in this household, unlike the other family. Free Carmelo. So just real brazen, real brazen. It's, and this is, bringing up tensions in people, right? People are tense about this. But what can I say? Like, where did I put this? Carmelo stuff. They're saying there's no now the family is coming out and saying we're not the father here, for example, is saying we didn't use any funds from the donations to bail out Carmelo. We don't even have access to that money yet. That's their claim, right? But it's like who cares about such a claim? Oh, you can't prove we used that money, used the donation money. so you had some money somewhere else, and because you know that all this money's coming in, it's like, yeah, spend that money. We got $500K coming in. Don't worry, that's nothing. Run up the credit cards, bail them out, run it up. It's fine. We're getting $500,000 coming in. So I don't know why that's controversial to say. And it's like, is Carmelo? I don't want to call him a victim. I don't want to call him like a victim here. I don't like that word, but is Carmelo? They're saying that they bought him new kicks. I don't know what this picture means. Really? Can we confirm they bought him new kicks? But let's paint a picture here briefly. Stretching maybe a little bit, because I don't know. If they bought themselves a whole house, a Cadillac or Escalade or whatever, and they bought Carmelo a suit and some kicks, is this the black family on steroids? Like the story of the anger in the black home and what the black man has to deal with, or many times is in cahoots with. Using their children. I've heard this story, honestly. Here's another reason I'm even saying this, because I've heard this. I've honestly heard this all too much. The black families, how they use their black sons, how they use them, black mothers. And just think about that. Think about every activist person. I don't know why this one's coming to mind, the hands up, don't shoot. That one's a little old now, but it seems like it was story after story of families who were like, they got a payday out of this and all that. So anyways, Carmelo, what did I want to say about this really quick before we get to calls? I mean, what else to say about this? Look, they're saying that this black judge was Republican, maybe. Now, according to this person, the judge who lowered his bail is Republican, by the way. And it's a little thing about identity, I guess. You really got to overcome such a thing, because that's what this has become. It's become like this fight, and it's just like our side, your side, truth be damned. And I don't know if I always saw white people operate in that way, but the lines between the so-called sides are ever blurrier, I got to at least say, to be honest. But I don't know. I don't know if this judge really they're saying that she posted as a comment on that fund. I doubt it. I don't think that's confirmed. But whoever this person is that posted on the Give, Send, Go wrote, everybody around me is surprised that I support this fund because I am a black conservative. But look at what word came first. Black. I am black first. God, remember, I used to joke about that. That was a bit I used to do. I used to do a bit about black conservatives where it's like, it seems to me like you could be conservative all the way, but don't you forget it, I'm black first. The meme became reality. And I'm not claiming that was the judge, by the way, but they are saying that the judge is a Republican. So anyways, on this, if I may, since I mentioned this with the illegals and Garcia and this whole constitutional crisis they're bringing up, this word comes to mind again, revolution. This whole idea, this word comes to mind again, revolution. You got the callers and they're saying, we got to separate. And well, maybe that's fine. I don't really think that's too controversial if you ask me. But, other things, just like it can get nasty, right? It can get crazy with anger. We need war. We need a civil war. All sorts of things, right? And I'm like hearing Mark out, which is no problem with him. He's allowed to call me again. He's just promoting books. I had to go. But what I'm trying to get at is like I was bringing something up to Mark, and it's basically this, like revolution. Isn't it a little silly to go to revolution? How do I put this? The revolution in this case would just be doing the right thing, right? Overcoming anger, not blaming, saying it how it is without fear, courage, working on you and your life, not putting your eyes on others. Everything I said so far applies to all races, all people. Wouldn't you think, don't you realize that those things I just mentioned is the revolution in this crazy world? And so the people who are like, we need to have a war. And I'm not saying Mark was saying that. He wasn't. He was being reasonable, I think. But anybody with this anger and this desire to fight it out and, you know, what is it? Wouldn't they be part of the same mess and not the revolution? Because I hear a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda. But honestly, you could right now. You could do right now. You could change your mentality and perspective right now. You could put your eyes on you, take your family where it's safe, do what you think is right now. So anyways, that's a little bit on Carmelo and the situation. Let me get to some calls here. I got Maze out of Dayton, Ohio. Maze, appreciate your call. You're on the air.
Hello, Nick.
How you doing, Maze?
I'm doing just marvelous listening to this crazy 60 stuff.
Okay, tell me. What's 60 stuff?
I don't like this person.
Because I need a little help here. I need some education.
That's right, because you're not from here, so you don't understand. And you got somebody out hollering about what was right.
Calm down, Maze. I was trying to say I'm an anchor baby. I was trying to say I was young. I was trying to say I was young and I didn't live through there. You don't have to call me an anchor baby that should leave the country.
I don't call you no anchor baby.
You don't have to. That's true. You don't call me that.
So, anyways, I was saying they always saying the 60s was a good time. There was no laws. I mean, like when laws came about, that's what upset some people because they didn't want anybody to have laws so they could do anything they wanted to people.
You said there were no laws in the 60s? Say that again?
Not really. Till civil rights came along, and then people had rights. In this country, they had where you couldn't even have black and white marrying each other. Still on the books in some places, but it was against the law to do that.
But I heard blacks back then didn't want to marry. Like they were fine with that too.
No, didn't want to marry.
Like they didn't want to marry whites.
Evidently, they were married.
Like maybe that's like what I'm trying to say is...
I won't even go there because that's part of his history that he want to leave out, and that's his problem. But
and what I want to know, and I'll let you continue, what I just want to know is that true, Maze? Like, was that true at some time, even though they changed that and people should be, whatever, people allowed to marry? Is it true that at some point, even though the laws were like, no, whatever they call it, marrying, interracial marrying, weren't blacks have that mentality too, or is my impression wrong?
It was happening, and they had to go to jail. People had to go to jail for doing it. But I won't tell you that part. His history is his problem, not ours. And everything, black people can't run this. When D.C. was messed up, Marion Barry went to D.C. You can look at the documentary if you want to see it, where he went there and straightened it out where they what you call it, white flight or whatever you want to call them, leaving, and left the place in a mess. He came and straightened it out. So now they're trying to reverse and take it back.
Wait, what are you trying to claim here, Maze?
Those heathens went in and tried to destroy the Capitol. He don't even think none of those should have went to jail either. He don't believe in law.
You went all sorts of places, Maze.
I'm still in the same place.
No, you're not. You went all sorts of places.
The same place. What the
allow me to. You made some claims from yesterday, today, and tomorrow. You went all over the place.
Today, he's talking about the 60s.
Well,
when they went up there in that Capitol, what were those heathens? But he don't even think to go to jail.
We were dealing with the 60s, and now you're at the Capitol. Let's hold on. Let's slow down. Let's slow down because you made some claims here. You're saying that there's all this white flight Mark's talking about.
You don't even want the judges to do their job.
But you said an interesting statement, Maze.
It's nothing about no liberal and conservative.
But you said an interesting statement, Maze. I want to focus on. You said that all this white flight Mark is talking about, they really left those areas in a mess.
No, I didn't say that. I said when D.C. was messed up and it was brought back by a black man. Mark kind of, black mirrored and black this and a black that. Black people can run stuff, some better than they can and some they can't.
So D.C. was a mess at one point, and a black mayor was voted in, and he made it right?
Oh, yes, he made it better and brought it back to what it was.
So what about the other stories?
It's just like Canada is upset with the U.S.
Wait, don't move so fast, Maze. Let's get to Canada in a second here. But let's say you're right, because I don't know, right? Okay. So you're saying this D.C. mayor came in, black mayor, fixed things. What about these other stories, though? Are those all lies, too? Like the mayor of Indiana, and not just Marcus saying that. I remember Jesse says that, this black mayor of Indiana. What about the black leaders I've seen in my lifetime in Chicago?
Yeah, but what about the Caucasian ones that's running the country that's all screwed up? You never say anything about that.
Yeah, but Maze.
And we pay taxes just like they do.
Yeah, Maze, yes. I agree.
Yes.
The government's
But it
messing it
wasn't
up.
that-
Men,
like-
white men are in there messing it
Oh,
up.
they got a problem
But
with
hold
it.
on, Maze. There's no one as crazy as these
That's
black
what I'm saying.
leaders.
So you
Let's
want
be
to have
real.
a fit about
No,
the
no.
boy and
White. I'll tell you this, Maze. White men are in the government messing things up. But
88%.
there's nobody like
88%.
Brandon Johnson.
88%
There's
of them.
no,
That's
Brandon Johnson's a special breed. You know,
What'd you say?
Brandon Johnson and leaders like that. What about that guy with the afro in the what was it, Mississippi? What was that courthouse? Yelling about gun violence and his brother. Like, there's no yeah, Maze. White men are ruining the government too in some ways, but there is nobody. There is nobody in the American government like the black activist political class. They are special. They are obstinate.
Why are they activists?
You
Why
cannot
did the
talk to
activists
them.
come along?
Huh?
Why did the activists come along? Because they were tired of being mistreated. They were tired of working for a little bit of money, working for other people, making them rich. So now they're working for themselves, making themselves rich, and Mark thinks somebody's coming to take over. He don't know what he's talking about. Talking about the 60s.
Well, you know what, Maze?
They would commit more crime than anybody. He still don't think it was law. He's with
I'm willing to.
Lee Atwater, look him up, and you will see what Mark is talking about.
But I'm willing to, you know what? I'm willing to say, I'm willing to be like, well, you know what, Maze? That's your claim from that time that I didn't live in. So you know what? I'll stay out of it. I can do that. But now you're bringing up something I lived through. Now you're bringing up the current age, and you're trying to. Wait, hold on. You're trying to tell me because you're telling me why are those activists even in the government, Nick? Because of all the things that happen in America.
I didn't say government.
Hold on.
You trying to put words in my mouth.
My bad. What I did. Let's slow it down. I did say activists, and you agreed, right? So whatever that was, you were saying that you were trying to tell me that they came into the America and all that for a reason, right? Because they were dealing with all the racism and the civil rights that had to happen. Are we on the same page there at least?
And slavery didn't end until the 70s.
But you're saying that it had to happen, right? And it all happened at a time before me.
And it wasn't by trying to bring it back like the
But follow me.
Nobody's trying to see them bring it back, and that's who's trying to bring it back. That's why they
You're gonna like this one. You're gonna like this one because you're saying that it had to happen, and it had to happen because all these things happened in an era that was before me. So you know what? I'll stay. I'll stay out of that in this conversation. But now you're saying, wait, hold on, wait. Now you're saying that those activists have to be there because of the way America is today. I see how how it is, and there is no oppression.
Laws go away, what do they
There
have?
is no civil rights that these blacks need.
I'm asking you, if the laws go away, what do they have?
Point one out, Maze. Tell me one single civil right that needs to be on the books for black people
Jesse,
that they wouldn't have. Huh?
I'll use Jesse as an example. They have a law for Jesse. They have Mark got a right to do whatever he wants to, but Jesse don't. So when he get the same right that Mark got, then we can say America is America.
But now you're being ridiculous.
I'm talking about
tell me one right. Tell me one right.
man is in the way because he done messed up America and he done messed up the world.
Name one right.
Name one right. 25.
Name one right Mark has Jesse doesn't have.
What? He got the right to vote. They got to vote on Jesse's every so many years. For him
What are you talking about?
His right to vote.
What are you talking
the
about?
Civil Rights Bill. That's what I'm trying to say. The Civil Rights Bill, Mark don't have a Civil Rights Bill. He always
Wait, but I heard the Civil Rights Bill didn't.
A voting right bill.
That's not what the Civil Rights did.
I'm saying the voting right bill, Nick. So Mark don't have a voting right bill. Nobody have nothing on the table for him. And guess who got to be the one to make sure that they stay there?
But isn't the voting this?
It's a man, not no black man.
No. But
when you hear people like Mark coming in talking about the 60s and how good it was.
But you're making stuff up too, Maze, and you're not even letting me get in there to talk about it.
Okay. Let's stop. He can go down.
Maze, you're lying too, though. You're not even letting me get in there and talk about it.
Well, I'm saying, let me.
But Maze, you're making stuff up too, and you're not even letting me get in there.
Take it up nothing. Anything I tell you, you can go find it. Without a problem. So you can go to Kentucky, you can go to J. Florida, you can go all of them little towns.
I still don't know of a single right that Jesse doesn't have that Mark does have. That's ridiculous. What? You're saying this voting rights thing.
Voting right act, he do not.
But this voting rights act you're talking about.
Right act what's the name got? Mark.
Huh?
What kind of voting right act is passed for Mark to have to use? Nothing. He ain't just go and vote. They can't take nothing away from him. The voting right act was passed in the 60s.
That's not even what that is, though.
What is it?
From my understanding.
What is it? That's right.
The voting rights didn't give them the right to vote.
He don't care about you. He don't care about people.
Blah, blah, blah. Maze, if you're not even going to listen to me, how about let's just say goodbye and have a nice day.
Oh, you ain't got scared now.
No, I'm not scared. We're just not even talking. You're just going off to another thing. I'm trying to ask you something about this Voting Rights Act, which to me, my understanding is that it didn't give them the right to vote, but just that you couldn't discriminate about like voting practices, kind of like the civil rights stuff.
Yeah, but is Mark got that?
Just to
same,
make things accurate, I wanted you to hear what if that's true or not. But I don't know. You're somewhere else.
It's
What do you
not
want-
true. I'm
say
saying,
what you
Mark-
want to say about Mark, and let's move on.
But do we have anything on paper for him like that?
All right, that's it.
Hmm?
I don't know what you're talking about, Maze.
For him to
You're
have
asking me a
right to
question
vote.
about another person.
They're trying to take the right to vote from people away now. You got to have a birth certificate. You got to do this and you got to do this. Who's trying to do all this stuff to people?
Man, Maze,
What?
do you think that there should be any limit to who is allowed to vote?
No, it shouldn't be a limit.
There should be no limit at all to who's allowed to vote.
What reason? If you're an American citizen,
Oh, okay, so there you go. There's a limit right there. American citizen.
it's always been that limit.
But it's not. There's people who are not American citizens, people who are dead voting. Do you realize this?
I want to hear that. I want to hear that.
You don't want to
But I'm
hear
not
that?
just-
You don't want to hear the truth? You're just going to... So I just said a fact and you're just going to say, I don't want to hear that.
No fact. That was no fact. Prove that
But
to
Maze,
me.
you said there should be no limits to who votes, but you agree with me there should be limits. For
I said
example,
Americans.
being an American citizen.
Anybody that's in office shouldn't
How
have
about this?
dual
How about this?
citizenship.
How about being alive? How about being alive?
Well,
Should
I
that
don't know
be should
anything
that
like
be a
that.
reason to be, should that be a limit to who's allowed to vote?
If whoever did that with the people, with the dead people.
No,
and then
it's
they
a
were-
yes or no question.
they were
Should
voting,
you
they
should
going
you
to
be
jail.
allowed to vote if
That's
you're
all.
alive or not?
No, if you're dead, you can't vote.
Right.
What you
And
talking-
so what do you think the birth certificate is for?
What do you think a birth certificate for? To prove that you're who you are.
Right.
Or you what?
So
what
you
do they
agree
got-
with me?
Person. When you die, your birth certificate die too. You're not here anymore. You're considered dead. But that's not what I'm talking
And
about.
yet
Nick.
they vote.
I'm talking about the 60s
And yet they vote.
and Mark.
And
He
yet
was-
they're on voter rolls.
He was. That's right. They're on voter roll because you get a letter telling that you what district you're in and where you go vote and all this stuff. So I don't know why they're having a big problem. Because they don't want people. And you're not supposed to obey the law. The courts and stuff. That's what they're there for, aren't they?
What?
Not listening to Mark. He thinks that you don't even have to have courts.
What? I don't even know what you're saying now.
You're supposed to listen to the Supreme Court.
You're rabid.
nobody-
You've gone rabid with anger of this man you've never met.
No, I'm not angry. I'm just trying to explain something to you.
You
don't
can't
understand
stop
because you're
talking
not
about him.
up
Do you
here.
know you're talking to Nick? You know you're talking to Nick the Anchor Baby?
I'm just
Do you know what day it is? Do you know what you're doing right now?
No, I don't. Do you know what you're doing?
So I rarely do, Maze. I rarely do, Maze. But then we're not talking about me. We're talking about you.
I'm talking about what Mark was saying, his problem that he got. And it's a lie, because in the 60s, he might have been having a good time in the 60s, but them same people he complaining about did not. He had rights and they didn't. He was doing stuff he wanted to, not even going to jail for the crimes he committed. Or because I'm quite sure he committed a crime, that's why he feel the way he does.
Nah, take it up with Mark. I'm staying out of it.
So I'm saying, so he trying to explain something to you, but he can't explain it to you. The Supreme Court, they can't even abide by the Supreme Court. You want to change it? You might be living in one district, and then they change you to another district so they can keep staying in office. So do you think people with dual citizenship should be in office?
No,
But why do we have a Congress full of them?
because Congress is full of people that are not for America.
Really? You think so? I thought Congress was supposed to be working for the people, not the people working for them. But it sounds like it's backwards to me.
Right. Yeah. You
Got
learning
two
that just
parties
now?
that work together and do things together, and that's why you can't see and change it. And Mark trying to put it on black people.
So
And
what
you
happened
do-
in the 60s? You still
and you sitting there listening to
I don't
us.
think we learned what happened in the 60s through this call, Maze.
So you was not
I
aware.
don't think
you
we
wasn't
quite
around.
learned.
Mark was.
Now Mark brought up, you could agree, but he was bringing up XYZ, this happened, that
he said
happened.
segregation in the 60s and this and this and
I don't
this
feel like I
segregation.
really learned much here, Maze,
not.
about the 60s.
Yeah, you really learned.
Maybe a
much.
little bit.
Well, he probably was doing the what you call those night riders kind of stuff, because he sounds just like those people that used to do it. Where you could be riding down the road, you and your family, being very peaceful, and here come a cop just embarrassing you in front of your children.
So, Maze,
And nothing could even happen. And Mark said those was the good old days. And I said slavery didn't end until the 70s.
so Maze,
So I don't know what people
this
come
may
up
be a
with.
strange question,
What's that?
but understand that I'm asking this not because I agree or justify the actions of these people, but I just want to hear what you would say to this concerning
say to them?
a group like, because we're back in the civil rights era and all that, concerning a group like for example the KKK. Would you say the KKK just came out of nowhere? Like they just appeared out of nowhere? They're like, you know what? We hate black people.
No, let me tell you something about the KKK.
Did it just happen out of completely nowhere, or was, you see what I'm asking?
Mark, they're like the way Mark think. That's the way they were thinking. And then the black man infiltrated them. After he been infiltrated,
but were they born thinking like that?
But
were they born thinking like that, or what is it? Like, how did they become? How did they start thinking like that? How did they start thinking like that?
This America we should live in now, everything should be peaceful with both sides. Not bickering about this, what no laws are. Don't you try?
I agree. I'm down with peace, Maze. I agree. But why do you think they started thinking like that? Where do you think that came from? Were they born like that? What happened?
Yes, they were from they always say.
So blacks and whites in America were just fine, and then a bunch of white racists were born, and they started thinking like Mark.
Well, not born. There was a bunch of them got jealous and started doing things.
Oh, so it was jealousy.
Jealousy, yeah, that's why those.
And that's really your honest conclusion and summary. That's really your honest conclusion and summary of the actions of the KKK in the '60s.
And that's how those towns
they were just jealous.
They weren't doing it out of love.
Okay, well, I agree with that. It definitely wasn't out of love, but I feel like. But anyways, I feel like we learned a little bit about Maze here. Your summary of the '60s is they were just jealous and they were born racist. Okay.
Yeah, the '60s were fun for him. So you can go to a cotton field and you can pick cotton all day and get 25 cents. He can go to the cotton field. He didn't have to go. This was in the 60s.
He might.
It was in the 72. It was in the 72.
He may have learned some good values.
Now you don't
if
have
he
nobody.
had gone
now you're mad
to
with
do
the
such
other
a
people
thing,
that came
don't you
over
think?
to pick the cotton and do the fruit and vegetables.
We've spent.
Now you upset with them.
I'm not upset.
Everybody is.
I tell people don't be upset. I tell people overcome anger, and there's no reason ever to be upset.
But what I'm trying to say, people don't want to relive what the past. They don't want to relive it, but Mark do.
I don't know if you know what you're talking about, Maze, but I appreciate your call. Either way,
they couldn't get fair nothing. But you expect for them to stay up to par with you.
Oh, Maze,
you getting the money
drop the whip. It's enough. You've given him 40 lashes. His back, Mark's back is raw and red from all the whipping. It's over, Maze. Let it go. Drop the whip.
Other conversation you was having. Let's have a conversation about that.
Wait, you want to have another conversation? We just don't have one.
The one that you had, the long conversation you had about Texas and the boy getting stabbed.
You want to do that? Okay, let's do this real quick. What do you want to say about Frisco?
Okay, you had the guy that was swimming, and they sketched the word in his back at the university, the swim team. So nobody had nothing to say about that.
I'm not familiar. Say that again. What happened with the swim team?
Press charges, and they suspended them from school. That's all that happened.
I'm not familiar. You said something happened with a swim team?
I'm never familiar with anything.
No, but slow down. I literally just heard you say swim team, and I don't know what else you said. Can you just explain to me what you're talking about?
I said the boy that was on the swim team with all these white guys, and they etched the word N in his back, the letter N in his back, but it was a word they etched in his back. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to do nothing about it. They didn't even want to arrest him. So how you think that guy going to feel?
You're telling me...
If he would have picked up something and did something to them, it would have been all on. And then the man in New York, the military man that was killed in New York, nobody had nothing to say.
So you're telling me some swimmer got the N-word?
Yes, it's on his back. On his back, yes.
They wrote the N-word on his back?
They did. And so they suspended them from school. I don't know
and
what
you're
happened.
wondering why they didn't suspend them? Well, how about this, Maze? You know what? Be thankful no one got stabbed to death in that situation, right?
So let's go to the military man.
So a student writes the N-word.
Hold
on, Maze. A student writes the N-word on someone, and you equate that to a student stabbing someone else over an altercation?
By them doing him that way, if he could have did something, I'm probably guess he wouldn't. Then they would have been happy. Tell Mark, it's not about Caucasian men.
Maze,
it's their problem.
If you slowed down, I would have heard you. I'm sorry. You're saying they etched the N-word in his skin?
Yes.
Okay.
In his skin.
That'd be still okay. Well.
But
okay, fine. I'm not even hearing the details because you're talking so fast.
I'm not trying to get the details out. You're just jumping along with Mark because Mark thinks somebody doing something to white men.
No, am I jumping along with you? I'm just taking calls.
No, I don't want you to join along with me. I want you to learn something instead of going along with him because he don't care nothing about your people either than you.
Maze got me on the ropes. 18 minutes in. Maze, you're going to take up my whole show. I love talking.
And I'm trying to tell Mark, go sit down somewhere because nobody want to relive the 60s, but you do.
Okay, that's enough out of that. No more of that, Maze. Last point, and we're moving on.
Okay, so you have a good one. And tell Mark to tell him he needs to worry about who takes a bath and who got boots in their hair, too. So have a good one.
Have a good one, Maze. Call me again. Thanks for the somewhat education there. I'm sweating. Maze got me on the ropes again. We love Maze. But Maze, you got to love Mark. And Mark, you got to love Maze. That's what's up. All right, let's see what's up. Okay. Let's move on here. I got all these topics too. I'm going to get right back to calls. Don't go anywhere. Concerning all this, though, race, some of this coming up. You know what? The Donald J. Trump X account posted this 4 hours ago. And I'm not understanding, like, what was the point of this? It's a video of Biden talking about, like, black people when he was growing up, I think. So this is the Donald, I have to assume this is the real one, right? At real Donald Trump. This is at real Donald Trump. This is his X account, verified. I think this is him, yeah? This has to be Trump. And he posted this video with no context and no caption. He just posted this.
And I'd never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time and I was only going in 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by. And I'd never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time and I was only going in 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by.
So yeah, Donald J. Trump posted this with no comment there. Well, I don't know why they're posting this. I have to assume that he or whatever team member posted this is trying to highlight Biden's Democratic racism. I don't know what is happening here. But I have to assume something of that sort is happening. They're highlighting his racism, I guess. Look at that. He's never even met black people before the 4th grade or whatever. And I don't know. Again, I really don't know why this was posted. But is Trump basically almost about to repost the Biden back in chains rap? It's like, is Trump just like moments away? Is he really this close to reposting that rap song? That edited meme rap song of Joe Biden talking about putting y'all back in chains? Because it's feeling like Trump is mere moments from posting such a thing. But I don't even know what he's doing here. Maybe trying to highlight racism or something. It's a rare case here, sir. Donald Trump, sir. It's a rare case where I'll side with Biden over you on this one. I don't know what you're doing with this, but it's a rare case. But I heard Biden was around when they were like forcefully integrating schools, and I don't know if he was for or against or what. But some of the clips I've seen of Biden, at least back in the day, he's at least pretty straight up about some of this stuff. He was at least straight up on some of this stuff, right? About predators and taking back the streets. We will not tolerate this culture. They literally haven't been socialized. They have no conscience. What else? Where? I can't find it. Did they get rid of it? I'm gonna put you all back in chains. Did they get rid of it? Anyways, it's not that important. We will not tolerate this culture. What a disgusting assertion. Said Joe Biden. But I disavow such racist Democrat things. Yeah, Kevin Howe in the chat. They think they're going to convince black people that all the racism stuff is real, but Dems are actually doing it, not Republicans. Terrible approach, honestly. And I don't know if this is like GOP stuff, if it's a team member, or if Trump somewhat thinks that, but whatever. We will not tolerate this culture. Oh,
y'all back.
No. Let's not do that because there's a bunch of N-words in that. It's not even that funny. Let's move on from that. It was just like old videos of Joe Biden they put together in a rap, and I thought it was funny. Let's move on from all this. Chase out of Texas. How you doing, sir? You're on the air.
Hey, I'm good, man. How you?
No problem, man. Thanks for your call. Go ahead.
Yeah, good weather today. So it's got this whole Mark and Mays situation. I've been seeing this brewing for a long time. I don't get it, especially older people. Y'all are supposed to kind of sort of be a little more wise and know a little better, and it's just it's strange to me. Why can't people see themselves as individuals first and then look at it as something else? You cannot control what other people do. You can't say, "Oh, look at the poor whites and look at the poor blacks." You can't do that because it's just like saying, I mean, what are you going to do about it besides sit and whine and cry on the internet? What are you going to do?
Right. Well, the only thing you could do with that mentality is what you would eventually end up doing is justifying wrongdoing simply because someone is of a certain color.
Well, sure. And I mean, and everyone knows, no one's stupid. Everyone knows that, yeah, most of the crime is perpetrated by blacks. There's various different reasons for that, various different reasons. No reason to go into it, but we know it happens. And then, of course, it's whites and this and that, and white people did bad things 400 years ago. We know that. Trying to guilt trip us and shame us and all that stuff, it's not going to do any good. It just makes you look ignorant. And,
I hear you, man.
You're not each individual person. So if a black person gets hurt by a white person, that's not you getting hurt. Why do you got to get so feelingsy about it? And the other way around.
Right.
White kid getting stabbed for whatever reason, man, yeah, that's bad. That's a shitty situation, but
keep it clean.
That's not you, dude. That's not you. Don't get so feelingsy. You want to send a message, try and doing it a little more calm. You're older, you're wiser, both of you. You're supposed to know better.
Oh man, you bring up a good point on emotion and just no matter what it is, no matter what side it is.
Using a bunch of emotion.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point on that because it really is a lot of that. I see.
Well, I mean, there's charisma and then there's emotion. And which one are you using? If you're using emotion, you're stuck in your feelings. You're stuck in your feels because of something. And then, of course, Mays has a bit more of a pass for this one being female. Mark, come on, dude. Come on. You can't do that, man. Anyway,
So you would say, from your impression, you get this sense that Mays and Mark are coming at it emotionally.
Their energy, for whatever that means, is just on par. I've been calling them yin and yang in the chat all day long.
I don't think that's an unfair statement. We may not know their hearts, and I don't like say right
about their hearts,
right. But hold on, it's fair. It's fair what you're saying because we are able to see people's actions and words, and there's something to be said about what you're saying without condemning and judging. Like we know what someone's heart is. There's something to be said about why are you so activated. We kind of see the emotion on you. And there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, and a lot of people will divert to that, and then and I've seen this before, even with younger people. They think they're doing it like as if they're saying the way I feel about so and so is because of this. Now, the best example is when I see a lot of white people. Mostly on the internet. I don't even see this in the world, and I've been going on and on and on about the wood pump, Aaron brother, that shit I've been talking about all day long. Yeah, I've seen some of these younger. And they'll they don't even whine about the Jews. And there's a constitution with the ABT, the AB, and the Aryan Circle. There's a constitution, and you have to know it when you're in there. You don't know when you get out. You don't care about it, but you have to know it. You have to know all this stuff. You got to know where the depths of the Aryan and all that. You got to really kind of sort of know this stuff. And they get it, and they don't even sit and whine about Jews all day long. It's like, come on, man. Why are you throwing out your fee-fees like that? You're looking stupid. You're looking soft. You're not going to get a message across. You're going to get a message across to other feelings people. They're not going to do anything.
Fair enough, Chase. Yeah,
And
you know,
don't
there's
want
so much I don't
violence
know.
Either. You don't need all that violence either. That's not going to solve anything. That gives the government an excuse to shut us down with martial law.
Fair enough, Chase. Yeah, there's a lot of facts and stuff I don't know, so people bring up all sorts of stuff. But one thing I can see like the energy and the spirit that people approach things with, and so that makes things clear for me. Like I may not know all the facts about this or that conspiracy, but I see all sorts of conspiracy type people approach this or that topic with the same energy and mentality.
Well,
and that tells you something without having to know all the facts about it.
Yeah. Well, it's the energy can be, you know, if you're naturally more of a high-strung type of person, then you know, you have a better way of you can have a pretty good way of conveying a message with high energy. But if you're using your emotions for that energy, it's not going to get across. It's not going to get across well. You're not going to get very far with it because you're not actually getting through to people. You're telling people, this is how I feel and this is what I want done. You're not telling people, this is what I'm confident about and this is what needs to be done. So, you know, older people, even females, older female, I don't give it a they're the black, white, or hey, it don't matter. Even you should be a little more. You want to get a message across, but then again, of course, I absolutely disagree with just about everything that comes from that side. So
fair enough, Chase. Appreciate the point on that.
Anyway,
anything else you want to say before we move the wheels?
Nah, we can go on, man. I've been on all day getting on your call-ins and y'all's call-ins, and I'm waiting for some
yin and yang. Well, appreciate your call, Chase.
That's every time. Just make fun of them. It's just yin and yang. That's Mark and Maze right there. Mark is yang and Min is.
Yeah, and I like talking to both of them, and they bring up interesting things and. Some more factual than others sometimes, but I'll give them both the factual card. And then
they're both full of the same kind of bitter hatred. Yeah, but yeah.
You might be able to say that. But hey, take it up with Mark on that one. But hey, appreciate your call, Chase. Call me again.
I'll have a chat with Mark. I'll chat with Maze too.
Yeah. Call me again,
Dude,
sir.
I'm sociable. I don't give a shit about anyone. Anyway, okay, man. I'll call in later.
Take care, man. 888-775-3773. You know, we never got through these clips here. With the Blue Origin stuff earlier this week, we never did get to do all this. You know, but I got so many calls coming in.
Broadcast partners for today's Face journalist and found.
Stop, that's too loud. You know, with all these calls, I just can't hold back. We got Derek out of Nashville. How you doing, sir? On the air.
All is well. Thanks for taking my call, Nick.
It's no problem. Go ahead.
I wanted to follow up on our call from the other day. I got my answer from Jesse about that one unforgivable sin, and it was stay out of my head. I'm not sure why I was all surprised.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said that was you.
Yeah. And it reminded me of my dad when I was a kid who told me to knock it off when I was acting up. It's just like, okay, I'll just do that. It seems to be a better idea than me trying to analyze the whole thing. And I'll tell you, since church on Sunday, between that gentleman that we've talked about at church and that gal Cora, and then there's a couple other people at church, because Jesse always talks about how your brothers and sisters aren't like your blood brothers and sisters. And there's this, it was just something I noticed. I have a sense of kinship with people when I'm like, oh, they're going through the exact same thing I'm going through. And it was just, I didn't think that much about it, but I just sort of noticed it this last week or so. Does that make any sense, or does that sound bizarre?
Yeah, are you just describing relating to people and like what they're going through?
Well, on one hand, it's not relating to other people. Jesse says, you know, how people don't want to play with you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to play with them either, and that's fine, without judgment.
Right.
But then I started to notice when I hear people, it's almost like I either have a stalker or that's my sister. When
right.
I hear, because I hear the things that I'm going through in other people's voices, and I just thought that was real interesting. I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, it does, honestly.
But I wanted to talk to you about the dog. So
okay.
And this will sound bizarre, but I ordered takeout yesterday, and it was on its way, and I was looking forward to it, and it made me think of Jesse and the meatloaf. But then I thought about the dog. It happened. I'm just describing it. It happened in an instant. And you're like, why do you want the dog? And I realized it was all ego.
Wow.
It was all ego. I don't want the dog. I don't want the dog at all. It was all in my head. It was all ego.
God exists. A soul is saved. No.
I want a cute little dog so I can walk it, and some pretty girl make a comment to me, and the dog will pretend to love. I don't want the dog. And it is because if I saw the thrill of the takeout,
Yep.
I go, like the meatloaf. I'm gonna enjoy. I'm not cooking tonight. I can't cook Thai anyway. Right? I'm gonna enjoy it. No big deal. The dog is different. And I was like, oh, no big deal. I'm like, I don't want the dog. And then people have asked me about the dog. Because I told somebody about it. Like,
that is so funny.
That is a different type of thrill than just enjoying the meatloaf and the Thai food. I'm like, oh, I think, I don't know if this is what Jesse means when you have to admit that you're wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong. No big deal.
It is. I think that's
Isn't
part
that
of
funny?
it, man. It's hilarious, and I'm so glad that you see this, because I remember talking to you about this, and it was only in the middle of our conversation that it became clear what I was even saying. And so yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. It's not even a commentary on what you should do or not. It's just the question. It's just simply, okay, I heard Jesse say, I heard Jesse enjoy this meatloaf, but that's not a reason to get a dog, even though I can't enjoy that dog the same way Jesse enjoys the meatloaf. Just being logical here, right? And it seems like you totally saw that.
I just didn't get it at the time.
Yeah.
And when the food was on its way, I go, oh, that has nothing to do with this dog.
Yep.
You want this dog for ego. It's all ego.
Yep.
You're lost in your thoughts. And I realize how much I do that. And kind of like the gal that calls into Jesse's show this week, I tend to punish myself for that.
Yep.
And there's no need to do that either. The gift is being able to see it and then just moving on. I thought it was wild. I know it seemed like Thai food and the dog, but it was just this little moment. And I appreciate both you and Jesse helping me work through that. It was a big, big help.
Nice, Derek. That makes so much sense how you put that. And I learned too and all that. And yeah, it's like we come up with reasons, but we don't even, what's the true reason why we're doing anything? Interesting, man. Fascinating. No dog for you. That's good.
No dog
At least not
for
for
me.
not for any messed up reason.
Right.
And that's amazing. What were you saying about feeling like relate? You didn't say relating, but I said relating. But understanding someone else, what they're going through. Unless you want to say something else about this, I'm going back there because you said something interesting about that.
Yes, please.
What were you saying about that?
Well, for instance, when there's this gal, Cora, that called into Jesse's show a couple of times this week, and you would think that I have called her, and I'm like, call Jesse and say this, because that's what I've been going through, some of the things that she struggled with. And there, again, I forget the gentleman's name at church, and then I feel embarrassed, but the gal that moved down to San Diego,
yes,
that's
Danielle.
usually good at. Well, anyway, when I hear her speak, I go, oh, there's a. It's not a feeling; it's just a sense of kinship where I can relate to what's being said, and that's why I kind of made a joke about it. I go, they're either stalkers and they're like, listening to everything that I'm thinking and saying, or like maybe that's what Jesse means by, oh, those are your brothers and sisters. If you're really working on yourself.
No, it's clear.
I don't know.
Interesting, man.
But
no, I'm not making any commentary on that. I'm just that's clear now. I was thinking you were saying something else. No, it
Am
makes
I
sense.
clear,
I do
or-
the same thing. I've thought to myself, here's something. I'm not saying this is you, but I've done that maybe even to a fault. But I don't know. That's a side note. I essentially totally understand what you're saying. Yeah, I'll hear callers. I'll hear people going through stuff, and I'm like, wow, we are all going through the same thing. The spirit is the same, and this person going through this crazy thing. It could be something I've never experienced, and yet they're really no different than me, and that's
no one's
how I see
different.
things.
That's why you have to love like Mace and Mark. You know, I'm not sure what they're upset about, but like everything, I know how I am when I get worked up about something, and so that's why you have to love them both, no matter what. They don't, you know, there's something going on inside of them, right? It's all the same. Right? It's all the same. Isn't that crazy? I find it crazy.
Absolutely,
I think Jesse said at church a lot. He's like, it gets really weird, and I go, yeah, it's kind of weird, all of it. But I'm very grateful for all you guys. I really
Thanks, Derek.
appreciate you guys.
Appreciate your call, man. Appreciate that.
Thanks again. Talk to you later.
Anytime. Call me again. All right, folks. That's pretty much the darn show. But you know, Derek had called me the other day, and he had just to explain to those who don't know, he had called me the other day because he heard Jesse talk about a meatloaf that he enjoyed. And I forget exactly how he put it, but he maybe even got a thrill over it or something. But it's not even that deep. I don't even know if Jesse called it a thrill, but that was interesting to some. And he described, I think it was him who described, being able to enjoy things like a song or a meatloaf with awareness, because you're not unconscious like you were before. That song isn't, your emotions aren't tied to that song like how it used to be. Your desires and all that isn't tied to the food like it used to be. So you see a man being able to enjoy such things with space. And Derek had called me understanding that being able to enjoy such things in that way and wondering if he could get a dog for that reason. Because, I mean, if you have awareness, can't you enjoy a dog in the same way? And he was considering purchasing a dog, and I didn't tell him not to. I simply asked him, well, what's the reason? For what reason would you buy one, right? Because understanding Jesse enjoying a meatloaf with space is not a reason to get a dog, right? And so he thought about it, and he realized, you know what? I really don't have a reason. So, anyways, folks, that's the show. I gotta go. That's it for me. We gotta vacate the studio for other things. See you tomorrow for Thursday, Bible Thumper Thursday on the JLP show, the rest of the network, and more American Anchor, baby. But for now, take care. Real quick before I go. Thank you, Madi Ubaldo says, miss you on YouTube. Nick, glad you're back on. Appreciate that, Ryan, and all the supporters. Jules, Hake Report, everybody on Punchy and D Live. Take care for now. See you tomorrow. Bye.